Good evening and welcome. Dobrý večer. My name is Helena Fischera. I'm on the board of SVO New York, and I would like to... You need to talk into the microphone. I'm sorry. Okay, better? Okay, better. Okay, all right. We wanted to express our thanks to the BBLA, which is our main organization here at the Czech House, Národní dům, at the Czech Národní dům, voilà. Okay, so thank you for coming for Tatana Kellner's presentation. Tatana came to the US with her family in 1969 as a refugee, as an immigrant, after the Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia. The family settled in Toledo, Ohio, where she attended the University of Toledo, and then she moved to Rochester, New York, and she received an MFA from the Rochester Institute of Technology. She then embarked on a prolific artistic career as an artist, and over 50 years, which led to her receiving numerous awards and exhibitions at renowned museums and institutions. She lives in upstate New York, where she co-founded the Women's Studio Workshop, celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. I want to share with you the emotion I felt discovering her work 2 years ago at the Kipnitz Upstate Gallery, upstate New York, and was then absolutely mesmerized last December by her masterpiece exhibited in the Treasures permanent exhibition at the New York Public Library, the main building, 42nd and 5th, okay? I brought some here, some treasures booklets that you are welcome to look at later, all right? Art leads us to discovery. Sorry, I'm just putting better picture. Sorry. Tatana's work challenges, intrigues, and provokes. It simply does what art is supposed to do: enlighten and inspire us. I give the floor to Tatana.
Thank you, Helena, and thank you everybody who came tonight. And thank you, SUV, for sponsoring this event. Oh, here we are. So what I'm going to just take you through a couple of pivotal points. So this is the Women's Studio Collective. It was started by 4 young artists, Barbara Lee from your left to right, Barbara Lee of Birch, Anne Kalmbach, myself, and Anita Wetzel. And we started as a collective in 1974. But when we tried to gain our not-for-profit status, that was no longer, that name was not acceptable in New York State, because it's too much similar to union bargaining. So we changed the Women's Studio Workshop. So the Women's Studio Workshop has been founded at that point and celebrated the 50th anniversary actually last year. We are embarking on our 51st. So we were young and enthusiastic and unemployed. Because Barbara and Anita were already living in the Hudson Valley, and I met in graduate school, so we moved to Rosendale, because Rosendale was the most affordable blue-collar town in Hudson Valley at the time. So this is a picture of Rosendale from a trestle, which was used for transporting cement, natural cement, for processing, and Rosendale cement was a big industry between 1820 and 1950 it was used in the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty, Brooklyn Bridge, and only with the invention of Portland cement did the industry died. So the town has a character of a sort of, I always think of it as a scene from the Western. So originally, all there was bars and brothels. When we moved there in 1974, it had 12 bars. Now it only has a wine bar. So times have changed. The Rosedale Theater is a center of town, and it's a community theater, community-owned theater, independent theater. So that's sort of the anchor of the town. So we moved, we were in a house for 9 years and we're looking for space to move to because we needed new facilities to accommodate our growing programming. We bought the company store, which didn't look like this. This is how it looks now. Spent a few years renovating it. And the workshop campus now consists of 5 buildings. I'm only showing 2. So the studios are in printmaking, paper making, book arts. We are building a ceramic studio. And on the your right-hand side is the building which houses the archive, exhibition space, meeting room, and a few assorted other things. The mission of the workshop has remained the same. It's to operate and maintain artist workspace that encourages the voice and vision of women and women-identified artists and provides professional opportunities to artists at various stages of their careers and promotes programs designed to stimulate public involvement, awareness, and support of the visual arts. To fulfill that mission, we have an Artist in Residence program where we invite, artists are selected to come, about 40 artists a year to spend time. And these are paid residencies, and they provide housing and technical assistance to produce their work. We also have a internship program where 9 young artists come to spend 6 to 8 months to a year to work in the studios to learn how to run an organization. We just finished the Summer Arts Institute. I'm sorry, I should go back. Okay. Summer Arts Institute, where we teach workshops, about 100 workshops, and I can see the rest of my image. I can't tell you what else we do, but it's here someplace. This is all I'm going to mention. So this is a very brief sort of overview. The workshop has actually there's an exhibition, a traveling exhibition now, celebrating 50 years of publishing artist books, and that's something which the workshop is known international. We have published over 260 titles, and these artist books are limited edition artwork in a book format. So I'm going to only discuss the books I work with, and I collaborate with Anne Kalmbach, who is my partner. Anne, stand up, please. Where are you? She's right there. So a lot of the books will feature her. So this is, I'm only going to show a couple because of the time limitations we have tonight. This is my 9 migraine cures, and Anne is a migraine sufferer. So this is a book. When I say limited edition, usually the books we produce about 50 to 100 copies. This was printed at Visual Studies Workshop in Rochester, so it has 300 copies of this book originally. So these are the cures. So it says not better yet on the left-hand side. Tells you what you should try. Turn the page. Not better yet, try massage. So you try that, and then you try hyperventilating. And that's also not better yet. So you try sleep, and that's how you get relief. So these are Anne's migraine cures. So Anne and I have published about over 20 books over the period of 5 decades. It's hard to even say that. And I'm just going to show one more on this topic. And on this one, I'm going to show you without speaking. It was inspired by by Target, which we found in a resort next to us. So in the summer, we have this bucolic setting. People come from all over to be in this setting to learn something, and all we heard that one summer was shooting from the resort next door because they rented the area closest to the workshop to a police training range. So we went there to investigate and collected the targets and made this book. So, so the books we make sort of on different topics. It depends sort of what's happening. Sometimes they are personal, sometimes they are more political. And I'll go show you, later on I'll show you a few more. So this is the book which was on the invitation. So of course my parents, as everybody knows, were Holocaust survivors, but we never really talked about it. And I just remember being, as a child, sort of staring at, in Czechoslovakia, the only people who had tattoos were Holocaust survivors or sailors. And it's a country, it's a landlocked country, so there were not too many sailors. So I remember as a child sort of staring at this tattoo, and all I could think of was how much it must have hurt, actually being tattooed, but because I had no experience. So I started thinking, when I got into middle age, about how little I knew. All I knew was that, how we were trained in terms of what relates to food. You had to eat everything which was on your plate because we didn't know what it was like to be hungry. And the other thing I knew, because my father, by mistake, sort of told this story, and I was 10 years old, to his friend. We were walking in Prague, and he was describing this 10-day transport from Auschwitz at the end of the war, when they couldn't, he was in they were sort of evacuating Auschwitz, and they were going west, and how people turned to cannibalism. It was a 10-day transport, and he ended up in Immigrant'S. I just couldn't believe that, sort of hearing that word cannibal. And so it just stayed in my mind. But that's sort of all I knew. So I started thinking how to go about asking them. And I went to visit a Holocaust, and I started sort of thinking about the topic, and I realized I need to sort of learn more, because even though I grew up with sort of war movies as a child, the Holocaust, in terms of how Jews were treated, was minimized, or sort of just a sideline. It was never really depicted, except the emaciated bodies. So I read a couple of books, and then I went to visit a Holocaust center, a couple of them, but when I was at Westchester someplace, I can't even remember where, and I happened to visit, and I saw this woman, sort of elderly woman, speaking to a group of high school students about her experiences, and I was sort of taken by the discrepancy between what she was describing. Here's this old woman describing with an accented English, just like mine, to a group of American students. And so what I wanted to do is remove the obstacle of age and language, the accent, the broken English. So when I got the idea, I finally approached my parents. So that's how the book sort of born into existence. And the books we have done before were usually sort of something which would take a couple of months, maybe maximum. So when I thought of this, I had no idea what I was asking. And sometimes it's good to be ignorant. So, the arm. So I decided to cast my parents' arms. And I had to make 2 books because I wanted the arm to be life-size. And in order to make a book with both arms, you would have to walk around to read the book, which is not practical. So my parents agreed to tell me their stories, and I would see them every summer, so we would sit down in the evenings and talk. That's not what they decided to do. So they decided to write it in English, and in Czech. And I would get these little, every week I get a couple pages, these little pages as their handwriting, and so I had to start translating. And these books were done 30 3 years ago, so a long time ago. But it was 20 years after I came to this country, so my Czech was pretty rusty, and my English wasn't that good. I mean, it was okay, but it wasn't perfect. And so I started translating, and I'm going to just describe the structure of the book so you can understand it, and then I'll go back to something. So basically what I decided to do, this is the beginning of my dad's book. So that's Sister 2, and on the left-hand side, in this case, it's the introduction. So my father and his mother were the only survivors from 47, family of 47. His first wife and his child, who was born in Terezin, died. And my parents met after the war. When I was working on this book, there were some things my parents were describing I didn't understand. And also, this was when I started, was 1990. So it was in 1990 when I started on this. And in 89, the Velvet Revolution happened. So it was the first time I could go back, because what I wanted to do is visit the sites I have never seen before, and also to photograph, primarily for the book. Okay, I should also add that my primary medium at this point is photography, at that point. So on the left, just take a look at this. On the left side, your left side. Is that pointer? No. On the left side, in this case, the introduction, and on the right-hand side, what you are looking at is a transparent paper, and it's images from the camps with the arm sticking through, and see this little hint of handwriting. That's the Czech version, my father's handwriting, and facing it on the opposite side is the English translation. So the image is printed twice, once on translucent paper and once on white paper. And that's the structure of the book when you go through it, so you can choose to read the Czech or the English. And then the next page would be what I think of when you see the images of the family photograph. I think it was the private side and the right side, the public side. And basically what I asked my parents to do is to describe from the time they were called to transport to the time they were liberated. And that's pretty much what they stuck to it. I had to sort of cut my father out at the end because he kept going on. And so I spent one summer just casting their arms, and everything was fine. And then things didn't get to be not too fine because my mom was diagnosed, and I had to sort of hurry up to finish the books 2 years later. In my father's book, at the background you see is a text from the Pinka synagogue of the Czech and Moravian Jews who died in the Holocaust, and throughout the book it gets larger. And I should say anybody who wants to read these books, they are at the New York Public Library and the Metropolitan Museum Watson Library, so you can just call and make an appointment and actually read them. Because what I can't stand about book arts is that when you can't, it's supposed to be a one-on-one experience when you actually go through the text, read the book, handle the book, and that becomes impossible when things are limited. But libraries will let you do that if you make an appointment. Okay, there's a few more pages out of my... So basically, what happened to my dad when on the 10-day transport, the way he was saved was as the Germans were losing the war, the German army was retreating back to the west from the east, and all the people who were prisoners all those transports were put on the siding, and they had to wait. So he's talking about a 10-day transport in January, where they're probably going less than 60 kilometers, and there was no food, no water, and how people turned to cannibalism, as I mentioned. And he was saved by Oscar Schindler because when they were on the siding, the prisoners in his factory who were working outside heard screaming, and so they opened the box cards, and people were safe. So then I think that's where he sort of spent 3 months recuperating until the war ended, and then he was freed. My mother's book follows the same format. This is her arm and her tattoo. My mother was very young. She was actually only 15 years old when she went to the camp. And she was the only survivor from her family. And, I haven't read these books in a long time. I recently reread the text, and I always thought my father's was sort of more awful, and in some way. But, reading this now, 20 years later, I realized what my mother doesn't say is even worse than what she says. And so she described instances, as a 16-year-old girl or 15-year-old girl, where what she did, what other people did, and she doesn't say what she had to do. So it's sort of must be enlightening. And so this is the only picture of my mother as a child we had. She was 9 years old in this picture, and so the same kind of structure. And these are her two. So she had two stepsisters who were older, like 13 years older than she was, and none of these people survived. I have no pictures of her mother or father, who both died. Her mother in Auschwitz, her father in Terezin, and and I think it really affected the kind of person she was. I only wish, that I asked. But I thought of asking different things than I asked at the time I was working on this. My mom was diagnosed with glioblastoma, and what they had to do is rewrite the text around the arm, right? Because they just sent me these sheets of paper I was translating, and it was hard for her. You seem to have am I going the wrong way? So this is at the end of her life. So this is the back page where you can actually see the arm in its entirety. So as I was saying, I was doing photography at this time, and I went on the strip to photograph it before I printed the book. These are all hand-printed. They're silk screencast paper. Don't even ask. Couldn't do it now. It was, and because my mom was sick, I was going to print my dad's book because it was going to be his 75th birthday. I was going to give him as a present. Well, guess what? My mother, who was 9 years younger, suddenly got sick, so I was really hurrying up so she can at least see the end. I mean, she'd see one copy of the book. So she did. And so there's few of those copies. So I decided I needed to sort of use the images, the photographic images, in my regular artwork, which was photography. So I was making these large-scale photo collages. And I was really interested in sort of extending the language of photography beyond the realm of documentation. So I would usually print disparate images of different images and combine them. So here's the image. This is called Family History, and you see the images, which I actually use throughout the books. There's inserts of Auschwitz. And these are large scale, they're like 8 feet by 4 feet. I was younger, more ambitious. And so I just showed a couple of these to show you. So as a teenager, being part of the, under communism, what you have to do when you're in high school is go hop picking, because hops obviously is an important crop. So what you are seeing on the side is hop poles for growing hops. And just before I left, that summer, the summer during the occupation, we had to go picking hops while there were soldiers in the countryside, and also in Prague. And it's a really unpleasant task because you have to wear gloves and long sleeves. It's very prickly, and it's very hot. And that was our contribution to the communist state. This is Auschwitz. So going to Terezin, it's a garrison town. There was this patina of age, because it was a 19th century garrison town. It had this softness, which Auschwitz didn't have because it was built by the Nazis. So we also there in November, and it was raining, so it was very somber. Anyway, I photographed them. So these pieces were done afterwards. I would just photograph with regular film and print them later when I got home. And then this is the exhibition. You can see how young it was. So this is I put it in for scale so you can see how big these pieces are. I hope I'm not talking 102 minutes because that's what it says here. And then I did some other work. So this is going a little bit. This is a few years later, and my brother lives in London, and he always used to take us on vacation in the winter, someplace warm. So that year we went to Israel on vacation, and this was the year that the far-right extremist, I think his name was Goldstein, he massacred praying Palestinians in a mosque in Hebron. And so that was incredible. And we rented a car to drive through Israel and not realizing how tiny it was. And so you don't even know when you are going from Israel to Palestine. And so we saw a lot of sort of teenagers with Uzis and a lot of people sort of, conflicts. And there was also a lot of sort of postage. I mean, you couldn't read the language, but there were visual images which made it pretty obvious that this was not a peaceful land. So I photographed there, this, and then brought home the images. And sorry, I have to go back. So it's called Canaan. And usually, working at the workshop, I'm retired now, but when I was working, I would try to take a month to go to artist residency so I can actually fully concentrate on my work as an artist. So I went to McDowell Colony, which is the oldest American colony in New Hampshire, and I was there in the winter, and I was working on this, trying to figure out what to do next after I finished the Holocaust work, and I thought I was finished with Holocaust. I was finished because I spent 3 years doing it, and I had these images from Israel, and I started printing them. And then one minute, I had a new studio. It had a fireplace, and trying to start a fire during a snowstorm, and there was snow kindling. So I had these images because I print a pile of images, then to combine them, and I started burning them to start the fire, so kindling. And then I realized that's how my ancestors died. That's how they perished, right? So this series of works sparked a new body of work which I did, and this is the Ancestors Burning, Not Yet Consumed series, and this is called Contested Lands. And this is one of the pieces. So there's about 15 pieces in this series. And then I was trying to find a way, because I was working these shaped images, I was trying to find a way to work on alternative surfaces. I just wanted a different format. So I started casting paper. And this is called Eyewitness. And this is photographic emulsion on handmade paper. And these are images of eyes. And the reason I started thinking about it is because I was looking at a lot of funeral sculpture after my parents died. And, and actually a lot of classical sculpture as well. A lot of classical sculpture, the eyes are blank. And when I went to school, that was just assumed that was the case. Of course, we have learned since that that's not the case. I mean, they used to be very brightly painted. And that just, what age does to things. And so I started thinking about eyes and what can you learn from looking at somebody's eyes and who's staring at who. So this became a series called Eyewitness, and there's about 100 of these cast eyes. And then 9/11 happened, which we are commemorating tomorrow. When 9/11 happened, I was working in the darkroom, not that day, but maybe, I don't remember. No, not that day, and in the morning, and I just couldn't go in the darkroom. I mean, something broke. I just couldn't believe what I was witnessing, and I realized that means war. We are going to war. I mean, obviously, And so I started reading the portraits of grief. And for those of you who are not old enough to remember, the New York Times, after 9/11, published sort of little mementos of each person who died, was an image of that person with their name and a byline, a little remembrance. I started reading, I couldn't stop. I just couldn't stop reading because I was thinking of these people who went to work one day, that's the prime of their life, and that's it. I mean, they just, so, and I also had a retrospective exhibition planned, scheduled, open about 9 months at CPA in Buffalo, which is a Center for Experimental and Perpetual Arts, photography arts, and they have this huge atrium. So I started collecting, this is early internet, and starting to research, who died, because there was so much uncertainty. And so this is what you're looking at, is 45 banners. Each of those banners 17 feet by 4 feet, printed on organza, screen printed names of the victims. And this is a close-up. So you can see there's so what I used from the newspaper, from Times, this is before the book was printed, and since then, since this time, the book has come up, which has all the names, which I didn't have at the time. Just be their name, and if there's a byline, it will be above them, and then the picture. There were also people who, there were no images I included, and also people who were not accounting, which would be the undocumented. Obviously, there were some undocumented people who perished in the attack. And so I printed like mad. It's a silk screen printed to get it ready for the opening, an opening in Buffalo on the first anniversary of the attack. And it was used sort of as a commemorative site of that event since that time. I think I showed it once more on the 10th anniversary, and we're approaching the 25th next year. So it's sort of amazing. So I started a little bit differently at this point, and I'm going to show you a couple other pieces. So, but since I became obsessed with the Times, reading the Times, they kept coming in these blue bags, right? And I was under the impression that only people in the country get them in blue bags. So I decided I'm going to make this, so I want to utilize the blue bags. And I was sort of thinking about it, so in the country, and then on the old road atlas, the small roads are in blue. So I said, I'll make the parallel between the small roads and my little country road. And so I made this. So this was a durational piece. I did this for 10 years. I really did. And at night. And this was not my primary activity. So this is a crochet 6-inch wide line that goes a long way. We went to Washington and with a few other places, but I'm trying to conserve my time. So I stopped doing this probably about 6 years ago, 7 years ago. I just got tired. Also, I stopped getting the Times every day, and very few of my friends are getting the Times, so I couldn't get enough bags. Lauren, who was here, kept supplying me with bags until she closed her in. And then we didn't have any more bags. Anyway, and I sort of thought about it, sort of the demise of the media, because now we are in a full digital age, and it's only people like my age or older who are reading the Times. And anyway, so that was the end of it. It needed to finish. Then I was invited to participate in this exhibition, which is called Reimagining the Distaff Toolkit. And this staff tool are the tools which were used in manual labor, which have since acquired collector status. Think of a washboard or sad iron. So I decided that iron will be my tool, and this piece has to do with the invisible labor performed by domestic workers and immigrants. So what you are looking at is 20 shirts to represent the working, white-collar working month. And the images of different irons throughout history are printed, and then there's an invisible text. And the text is ironed out during the day, and it's exhibited at the gallery. And I'll let you watch it a little bit. So, and I have to thank Woody, our inventor who helped me figure out how to do this. I had to actually move the iron automatically, and I love the noise it would make. And so it takes about 5 minutes to iron it out, and the text appears. And the text has to do with labors performed by immigrants and domestic workers. So what I'm showing you is not like what I do every day. These are just some highlights. This is called Poison Well, and this consists of a transparent tank filled with water and this roll of water-soluble paper on which are printed the names of 70 toxic chemicals used in fracking. And the inspiration for this was that actually there was a proposal to do hydraulic fracking on the Marcellus Shale, which goes through Pennsylvania and also to Hudson Valley. And Hudson Valley has a lot of reservoirs which supply New York City. So it was totally stupid. And it was defeated. But for a while it looked like it might not be. So I did research. These are the 70 most toxic chemicals that I used in hydraulic fracking, or that were used at the time. And I printed them repeatedly on this long roll of water-soluble paper. And then over the period of an exhibition, it would be lowered into a tank of water. The paper will dissolve, and the text would fall to the bottom. Do we have this also? Let's see, this is supposed to play too. Why isn't this playing? I don't know how to make it play. Anyway, let's imagine it playing and dissolving. Maybe it's the next one. Oh, here it is. Okay, just stop that. Enough. So it would take depending on the exhibition schedule, it would take about a month before the tank would fill up. Then I have to empty it and I collected the water and bottle it, and you could take it home with you. This is produced water, and produced water is the name of fracked water that is actually toxic waste. And we don't know what to do with it, so we just put it in these large plastic-lined pools and let it evaporate, I guess. So the problem is doing something like this is that you have to print it every time you show it, the same as the shirts. It's 40 hours of work, non-stop work to print this roll. So, needless to say, that project is finished. Unless somebody pays me, and I can hire somebody. So moving on, this is called Please Exit Doors Are Closing. And I don't know, when I was visiting 30 years ago, the Czech metro, that was what they were telling you. Výstupa návstup, dveře se zavírají. Is it still, I don't know if it's still the same. Anyway, so I made this series of prints. It's about 100 prints. This is from an exhibition in Troy, actually, New York. And I was at the residency in Wyoming, and I happened to be watching the Trump Hillary Clinton debates, and I just couldn't believe what I was hearing, because now it seems so mild compared where we are now. But anyway, so I made this series of prints about immigration. And then, Anne, read this, please.
Whereas we declare.
Thank you. I can't say W. So this is another book, and I collaborated on. And many times, not many times, several times, images I do in one medium, on one format, get transmuted into a different format. And that was the case with the Please Exit prints. So they sort of look like a book because there was all this text, but I didn't know what to do with them. So a few years later, it was the 70th anniversary of the Declaration of Human Rights. And of course, we were talking about deportation, borders, building a wall. This is the Trump 1.0. So I used the prints along with the 10 articles of the 30th article of the Universal Declaration on the 70th anniversary, realizing that all these things are still not true. And this is from this was in 1948 when this declaration was written. And so I did, this is combined with all the contributions immigrants have made to this country. And this page of notable immigrants, couple pages. So that was that book. This is, again, another collaboration between Anne and me. This is called Golden Rule. And this book examines sort of 13 different world religions and their basic tenet. Sort of asking the same question, you know, what we say in non-sectarian world, the Golden Rule, do unto others as you would have done them unto you, and, you know, where we are now, where we have been forever, really. So the way the book is designed is that, can you see that the embossed text is in the original language, and these are different religions going from the oldest to the newest, and it's faced with articles about petty crimes and punishment. This was in that little pink square. And as you page through the book, as you turn the page, there's a text which is erased, which you can't read. And there's actually 2 pages of that kind of text. And then only when you go to the 4th page can you read the Golden Rule, and it tells you where it's from. So in this case, the workshop sponsored, it was 10 years ago, sponsored the August Arts Festival. So it was a cement mining town. There used to be a train running right in front of the workshop before our time, or as we were just buying it. Now it's a rail trail. So we invited artists to make artwork for a mile. This was a mile to the trestle, which is the bridge you first saw when I showed the slides of the town. So Anne and I decided to take the Golden Rule text of different religion and letter them in sand on the trail. So every day we would go out. It was really good for exercise, I tell you. And we would letter one of the tenets. And then as people walk by or run by, or if it rains, it will get washed out. And then we do it again next day. I mean, it was 30 days, a month, for the whole month of the festival. And this is our last book. We have done latest book. It's called Your Leader Could Be a Tyrant. And of course, this doesn't really require an explanation. So this was published 2018, I think, or 19. And this was when the war became, when the policies became even more, more often than before. But so we chose the 26 of the 20th and 21st century tyrants or dictators. And actually in the book you have 50, there's over 50 tyrants or dictators which are listed by the Freedom House. They publish the Freedom in the World annual survey, and then so it changes every year. I think ours was like maybe 2 years out of date. And so we wanted to be playful, but at the same time serious. So these are different hate symbols. These are the end pages. Many of them symbols of white supremacy and Nazism. And if you don't know them, you can look them up. And I'm only showing one page of this book. So what you see on the left-hand side, so Anne likes to joke. She always wanted to have a cup which says boss. She was the executive director of the workshop. So the golden cup, it says boss in native language, in this case Arabic. And the pencil will give you that it's a Saddam Hussein. If you can, it could be read, right? Yeah. And on the right side are the strange habits inside his head, and underneath in the red is what he was known for. And of course, underneath the golden cup is identification and all the crimes and sort of what kind of, when he was in power, how many people died, how many people he killed. They're all men. And so there's 20, as I mentioned, there's 26. And then I enlarged them and made them into paintings. So this series consists of 26 paintings. This was shown actually in 2020 in the middle of COVID at Trieste Art Space in New Hampshire. As you can see, not well attended. And here's our friend Vladimir. And when I'm not doing that kind of work, I just go to my studio and paint. So this is called, what is this called? Involuntary exit. These are more subconscious approaches to creating works. I go to the studio and make a mark and see what emerges and then respond to it. And that's what I do when I'm not working on a specific project. And this is After You, recent Pierce. And this is called Deported. And these are about medium size, 30 by 40, something like that, inches. And I also make a lot of monoprints or graphic works. And this is what I was thinking, why did I make it so big, you know? And so this was done during COVID, and I was working primarily in black and white, or monochrome, I should say. And this is a recent piece. It's called Led Away. And occasionally we do other public intervention. I'm almost finished. So here we are. This is 2016, and we make a series of posters. We put them up, and people take them down. Because there's very few places to put posters except on telephone poles where we live, and it makes people mad. So actually we took this to the Women's March in D.C., and they were pretty popular there. And I'm just showing you one of the posters we did. This one actually people liked, so it stayed up longer. Usually we would put a poster up and we come back 3 hours later and we'll be gone. So it gets pretty tiresome. And that's all I have for you. And if you want to look up my other work, here's the contact.
Thank you. This one? I think we're going to start a Q&A. So if you please, do you mind going back there? Maybe you want to sit on-
No, I'm fine standing. Yes?
I was aware of the book you had with the arm. Oh, I'm sorry. Here you got it.
I was aware of the book you had with the arm because it was at the Grow Your Club,
Yes.
courtesy of Robert Rubin.
Yes.
I didn't realize that it was your mother and your father. I don't think I saw. What was the edition of each of those books?
So my mother was edition of 40 because I lost a lot because I was printing in a hurry. My father's edition of 50.
Thank you. It was a great talk about a great lifetime of work. And for that, I thank you, and I think everyone here thanks you. But I'm curious, I've just finished reading a book about the sort of communication of feminist concerns between New York and USA and Eastern Europe called The Visitors by Anne Snitow. I don't know if you've ever heard of this
No,
book.
I have not.
And this really, she only began this communication in around 89, with the fall of communism. But I wondered about your interest in feminism. Do you see it as starting in Czechoslovakia or only when you came to the US?
I think I wasn't aware of it. I mean, I was 17 years old. I had no experience or no awareness of feminism in Czechoslovakia at the time. I was a, middle school. I was a student, and nothing I had contact with. So it wasn't actually until I met Anne that I became aware of it in graduate school. So it was, probably not till 73, 74.
I have a question. I have two questions.
Two questions?
So one is, what is that medium the hand is made from?
I'm sorry?
The hands in the books.
The
What
hand
what
is
is
cast handmade paper. It's cotton and abaca fiber.
Okay, so it's
So,
paper.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I set up paper making at the Women's Studio Workshop many decades ago, and so paper making was something, but that could be used. I think pretty much with everything I do I do something that I could actually do myself or with support from, others. But it's not. It's something I'm actually involved in producing. I'm interested in that, in a hands-on approach.
Yeah, it looks very realistic, at least in the pictures. And my other question, so that workshop you have, is it really exclusively to support women artists, or do you also have some men involved, who you can support?
It's a workshop that supports women and non-binary artists in terms of funded programs. So if the public programs are open to everybody, as is our Summer Arts Institute and the Art and Education program. So that's general. It's not gender specific. But in terms of supporting artists financially or in producing their work, it's for women and women identified artists only. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, I wanted to thank you. I hope you survived this. I'm right here. I hope you survived this.
This is light right in
All
front of
right.
my eyes.
I'm sure it was not an easy exercise, so thank you very much. I feel very grateful. I have you actually changed the title of your presentation, and you stuck to through the immigrant's lens. Do you think that still defines you after all these years? Or is it influenced by, the social context? Let me put it this way.
I think it's both.
Uh-huh.
I think when you live in a society, when you live in a culture or society, you're influenced by that, but also, I think as we all know, your early childhood training is really influential, and it's very hard to shed that. So I think the way I look at things is different if I was brought up, here as opposed to there.
What was the other title? You mentioned? What was the other title? She mentioned that you changed the title.
I did, but I don't know what the other title was.
Something to the future. Escaping to the future or something like that.
Escaping your future.
That wasn't my title, that was your title. And maybe escaping the past, but not escaping the future.
No, it was much more. It was something like that. I'm sorry.
It's okay, it's okay.
Okay, any other questions?
I have a question. It's very, over here.
I'm sorry.
I know, it's disorienting. This is not artistic question. This is practical question. You have these pieces, they are huge. Mm-hmm. How do you physically do it? Do you do it by yourself? Do you have helpers? Do you have ladders? How do you do
I
that?
have ladders. I think, which pieces are you referring to?
Well, those big ones, the ones that you have in your studio, for example. You were showing that in your studio is like really huge.
I roll it up.
Like photographs, you mean? Those
Photographs
large
The photographs. Well, I stopped doing photography, that kind of work after 9/11. I think before that, I was younger. They're in pieces, so they come apart. Actually, I had to there was an exhibition last year about Holocaust, and we had to transport like 4 of those pieces. We didn't, they did. Well, actually, Amani did. It's right here. And it's very expensive. So it just becomes prohibitive. And to show that, because the exhibiting venue has to pay thousands of dollars to get the work in back and forth, It's just what it costs. And I just wasn't practical when I was younger because I did everything myself. I can't do that anymore, so.
Do you exercise?
Do I exercise? Do I look like I exercise? Well, that's your answer. Any other personal questions?
Not a person.
Not a personal question. First, thank you so much. It was a joy to see the expansion of your work across
Thank
time. What are you working on now?
Now, well, it's always a hard question because we don't know if it actually will happen. We are thinking of doing another book, but we've been thinking about it for a while, and somehow it's not happening. So we'll see if it happens. And other than that, I'm working in my studio on more pieces and see what emerges. And usually I sort of vacillate between painting and doing some monoprinting or collages. So that's what I do on sort of regular basis. And I just go to the studio and see what happens. Sometimes things happen and sometimes they don't. And that's just the process of being an artist, I think.
Do you consider yourself an activist?
It depends. I think, growing up in a communist country where it was compulsory to sort of, how should I say it, to be rah-rah communist, or rah-rah, even in childhood, I like to work on being activist with my work, not necessarily being on the front lines. I think what I like to express is express it, what I'm thinking about or what I'm responding to is my work. So I think it's up to the person seeing the work to decide if it's activist or not. I think activist is a loaded term. I like to sort of I like to present the work so the audience can decide or can see something in it that will make them think about how to respond to what they're observing.
To piggyback on what you just said, so it sounds like you don't have an idea of how you want your audience to respond. In other words, I don't care how you do you have an idea of how you want your audience to respond to your work? And I think it goes per work.
I think that's, no, I think that's, I don't want to be indoctrinating. So I'm not forcing you to respond one way or another. I think what I find interesting when I present work that I think says something and somebody else sees something else in it, I think that's what makes it interesting. Because if you are just feeding people the line, what's the point? You're either speaking to the converted or you are just making the other side mad. So I think the job of an artist is not. Some artists are activists and they're very much on the front lines for that. I'm more interested in a more nuanced approach to how the audience reads what I'm presenting.
And indulge me one more question. Have you ever been horrified by how someone interprets or reviews?
No.
Good thing. Or not?
As far as I know, that's not. No,
What
it's
you
not.
were saying, what you said was that you. Oh, well, I can talk to you
I'll leave it
afterwards.
up to you
Yes,
to
you see.
be horrified. I don't get horrified. I just give you the stuff, and you
Right.
decide what you want to do with it.
I really liked the piece that you did and how you spoke about how 9/11 affected you. As we approach the 25th year, and as the number of people who perished after the fact are increasing and larger than those we lost that day, are you thinking about including an exhibit or photographs with those victims?
I'm actually, that's not something which occurred to me because that would require different kind of research, and I think that's a different topic because that's a different event. This is tied to the 9/11 event, obviously, but it's a different thing, different kind of suffering than when something happened like that and you're gone, And I think when you have slow death, or slow, I think that it needs different kind of addressing, of thinking about, and different kind of responsibility, and accountability.
I was always kind of offended when in this country the system or certain parties or were compared to fascism. I thought it was actually demeaning, to to my experience. Never anything came really near fascism in this country. Do you think, in your experience, that now we are approaching the state, then we can call it
What do you think?
beginning of fascism?
Well, by asking a question, it answers itself, right? I mean, I think depends on where you stand on an issue, but we are being acclimated to horror, slowly but surely. And so I think, I know as much as you do, and as much, we all absorb different information. We all see different information. We have no idea really what the truth is, and we have no idea where we are going. And I think it's a very scary time, and we are being scared. I mean, we are being scared by the government. We are being actually, everybody vote. I mean, I think we are being, it's purposeful, I can't think of the word. We are being purposefully tyrannized and afraid to speak and afraid to, desperate. And that's on purpose. That's on purpose.
Thank you.
And just a note, I think it's interesting how often in your art there are words or language. Like it seems like a big part, even though you're like visual artist. But then when you like create, as you said, on your own, it's just images. So do you have any like balance or like anything like to comment on that? How much language, like displayed language, words and torn words, how it seems it's a big part of your art?
I think language, we know how to use language, we know how to read. We don't know how to read visual images, so we're not trained well. So I think if you use language with visual images, sometimes you can't get beyond the language. So I think using language, sometimes I use it when it's clear that it's okay, that the image becomes a secondary. But I think I don't use it all the time because I think it's too strong. And it just stops you as the viewer to be able to go beyond that and see what you see in yourself. So I think that's what's interesting, is to allow you to sort of see your experience, so what you think is right, and then you go read the label. Maybe it will give you a hint. If they give you labels, that's all I'm saying.
No, to strike that balance between the two, it seems like it's something you're really striving for, and it's probably not easy. Like so.
Yeah, I think sometimes I think I have been using it less because I feel it's too strong. I mean, it just becomes second. I use it in books or when I make prints sometimes, because that sort of that format is more suitable for that, because you are actually specifically talking about certain ideas. If you are working more intuitively, just in visual images, I want to sort of see what emerges, and the words are there. It will just stop that process.
I have one more question.
Okay.
With the work you were showing, some of it could be applied to today. Mm-hmm. Are you getting still motivated or inspired to express your feelings that way, because it just happened again and again and again?
I think it's happening with such a speed. I mean, it's such an assault on our senses and our thought. I mean, I don't know about you, when I open my apps every morning, there's another horrible thing that happened. Or so it's like we are being bombarded with information which makes us impotent to act. So, yes, it's something which I think about all the time, but I'm frozen because that's how it's designed. We are being overwhelmed. And so I'm thinking how to deal with that, but it's like, it's like an assault on all your senses. And, I retreat to my studio and just see what happens. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Tatana. Thank you very much.